Hi everybody, Rob Scott here from UC Today, and in this session I'm joined by the CEO of Mio, Tom Hadfield, who's going to step us through his company's latest innovation, Mio Universal Channels. Welcome, Tom.
Rob, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. More to the point, how are you?
We're great. We're great. We just launched this new product yesterday, Mio Universal Channels. I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we jump into the product though, Tom, probably a good place to start would be an introduction. Could you tell the viewers who you are and who Mio are?
Sure. So my name's Tom Hadfield. I'm the founder of Mio. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've created 5 venture-backed software companies over the past 15 years. As I was working on my last company, I realized that I had several different messaging apps installed. I was using Webex to talk with the Cisco partners. I was using Zoom to talk with Zoom. I was using Slack to talk with Slack. I was using Google Hangouts to chat with the Google partners we were working with. And so initially ended up building a product for my own use as much as anyone else's, so that I could stay within my preferred messaging app, which happens to be Slack, and still be able to communicate with all of our partners who were using different messaging tools. And it turns out that there was a kind of broader audience for a product like that, and so we created Mio.
Fantastic. And you solve, as you just rightly said, one of the biggest challenges of collaboration, which is interoperability. And I believe there's a bit of an interesting backstory to interoperability and messaging. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there have always been walled gardens in the communication space. And so you'll remember in the mid-90s with AOL and Prodigy and CompuServe were kind of classic walled gardens. They were ultimately replaced by the internet. In the early 2000s, you had AOL Instant Messenger and MSN and ICQ. And the approach to interoperability back then was to have a multi-headed client like Trillian, which allowed you to log into each of those separate IM platforms and communicate across them. In the late, closer to 2010, the approach to interoperability was through open standards. And so the IETF came up with SIP and later with XMPP. And so the IM federation between Jabber and Skype for Business from 10 years ago was all built around open standards and XMPP federation. The big thing that's changed, the reason why this time is different, is that with the emergence of team collaboration apps like Slack and Microsoft Teams, they all have mature APIs. Right? We've seen the APIization of the world, really. And so that enables a modern approach to interoperability, which is API federation. So open standards are dead, XMPP is almost dead, and so the way to get Slack and Microsoft Teams and Webex Teams and other team collaboration apps all talking with each other is through this approach of API federation.
Great stuff. So who needs cross-platform messaging? Who needs this kind of solution, generally speaking?
I mean, basically everyone who uses Slack, Microsoft Teams, or Webex Teams, or any team collaboration tool. So it's probably true that you use one of those tools for your internal communication with your colleagues, but anytime you have to communicate externally, then you default back to email. So for example, we scheduled this interview by email. You probably communicate with a lot of your sponsors and contributors by email. Even though they're early adopters of all the team collaboration tools, it's probably true that you're on something like Microsoft Teams and they're on something like Slack or Webex Teams. And right now, those apps don't talk to each other, which really doesn't make any sense. So if you look at any industry vertical, lawyers should really be using real-time messaging to communicate with their clients. Their billable hours would go up if they could. Marketing agencies would be able to better serve their clients if they could use team collaboration tools. Venture capital investors should be using this to communicate with their portfolio companies. Basically, any business should be using this to talk with their customers or their vendors, for example. The only real solution alternative is to add them as guest users, which really doesn't make any sense because it's just another workspace for your customers to have to check. And we all recognize that frustration of being added as yet another guest user on another workspace using a different messaging app. which just creates somewhere else you have to check. And so we think it's kind of inevitable that that all of these platforms are going to come together in a kind of unified way, so that any knowledge worker can communicate with any other business contact, either internally or externally, regardless of which tool they're using.
Great stuff. And I'm keen to understand the differences between the likes of Slack and Microsoft Teams, and how you handle, the functionality and the user experience for the users on those two different platforms. How do you deal with those differences?
Yeah, good question. So we're seeing a lot of convergence between the platforms. And so Microsoft Teams increasingly looks like Slack, and Slack increasingly looks like Microsoft Teams. And that's true of the other team collaboration tools as well. But there are still differences. Slack supports custom emojis, for example, which are not supported on Microsoft Teams, just as one example. And so when we're thinking about interoperability between platforms, we do the best we can by mapping the different UI elements that are available to us. In the custom emoji, for example, if I were to post a message and you were to react with a custom emoji that's only available on your workspace, Mio would download that custom emoji and post it as a threaded reply in Microsoft Teams, so that I could see that you've reacted in that way. Now, it won't be a native emoji reaction to the message, but the person on the other side will be able to see the intent. And so, I think over time, we kind of think about this in a similar way to the browser wars in the mid-90s, where, Internet Explorer and Netscape and others used to have differences. And they went through a period where there was kind of a period of innovation where people would experiment with the blink tag and others. But eventually, by the early 2000s, everything had settled down, and basically all browsers supported a common feature set. And that's really what we see happening in the team collaboration space as well.
Great stuff. Around the big brands, Slack, Microsoft, Cisco, I mean, it's been said for a long time that the big collaboration companies don't collaborate very well. I mean, are they integrating to what extent are they integrating?
Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it, that the collaboration industry is kind of notoriously bad at collaboration between the major players. Right now, there is very little integration from a messaging perspective between any of the team collaboration tools. You're beginning to see more and more integrations around initiating meetings across platform. And so you can initiate a Microsoft Teams meeting from within Slack. You can initiate a Zoom meeting from within Microsoft Teams. And so the vendors are beginning to build those kind of integrations on their competitor platforms. What you're not yet seeing natively is support for cross-platform chat. And so, for example, Slack shared channels only work with other Slack customers. On Webex Teams, you can chat with people outside of your company as long as they're using Webex Teams. And so the work that Slack and Microsoft and Cisco are doing on enabling external communication is really just expanding the walled garden from outside the walls of your organization to the walls of the people that are using the same messaging app as yourself. We like to think of that as like the local area network, right? So we still think that Slack will always be delivering messages between Slack users, even between different companies. That's their network. That's the local area network. What we're trying to do at Mio is build the wide area network that connects Microsoft and Slack and Cisco customers together onto one global workplace communications network that enables anyone in the world to collaborate in real time with their external business contacts. And we think that if we could pull that off, ultimately that's what enables us to stop using email so much and start communicating in real time with our customers and external business contacts.
So, Tom, it's essentially external federation. So tell me how you deliver a service like Mio Universal Channels.
So the way to think about Mio Universal Channels is very similar to Slack shared channels, except cross-platform. So if you use Microsoft Teams or Slack or Webex Teams, you can create a universal channel and invite your external business contacts to join from whatever their preferred messaging app is. And from that point forward, the two of you can communicate. You could be in Microsoft Teams, I could be in Slack, and there's essentially one channel that exists on each of our workspaces that enables us to chat in real time. The way that we do that is by federating the APIs. So we have an app that's installed on your Microsoft Teams tenant that listens to messages posted into that channel. And then we have an app in the Slack app directory, which sits in my Slack channel and posts the messages that you've posted into Microsoft Teams. And so we essentially, the Universal Channel is kind of mirrored on both of our workspaces. So that's the basic concept. The good news is you can have as many different chat apps in one Universal Channel as you like. And so you could create a channel for all of the audience of UC Today could join the UC Today Universal Channel and no one would have to leave their messaging app of choice, and everyone could communicate together in this community channel. A more common use case we're finding is for talking with your customers or talking with your vendors or your partners. And so you can set up a channel without needing to add them as a guest user on your account. So the goal here is just to make real-time communication with your external business contacts as easy as possible.
Yeah, sounds really cool. And in terms of getting set up, I take it doesn't take very long to configure. What's your go-to-market on it? How do customers get involved?
Yeah, it's a completely self-service product that you can install from the Slack app directory or the Microsoft Teams app directory or the Webex app hub. It's a freemium business model, so you can install the app, create a universal channel for free, invite your external contacts. If you like the app and you want to create a second channel, then you can enter your credit card information. We charge $10 per channel per month after you've used your free channel. And we've tried to make it as quick and easy to get set up as possible. So in theory, anyone watching this could go to the m.io website right now and get the app installed and be up and running in a couple of minutes.
Fantastic. And I take it you've been trialing this with some customers already. What have they been saying?
Yeah, we launched the product yesterday. We had about 600 customers on our waitlist. Wow. We had a law firm yesterday based in the US who has already started using this with their legal clients. But really, I mean, we've just been overwhelmed by the level of interest in this, particularly given the recent spikes in usage for Microsoft Teams and Slack as people are increasingly working from home. And so as these team collaboration tools get more and more popular, I think we're finding that a lot of those users are kind of trying to figure out how they can be talking with their external contacts, and they're finding Mio, and everyone's using it in their own way.
Great. And you're currently supporting Slack, Microsoft Teams, and Webex Teams, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We started with those three. Combined have about 100 million daily active users, and so that's our kind of initial focus. On our roadmap this year, we do have plans to add the other major team collaboration tools as well. And so you'll be seeing some announcements from us this spring as we add more platforms. The goal here is really to federate every team collaboration app together into one global workplace communications network. And so wherever you have persistent team chat in the workplace, we want to get you connected to this network so that you can use that tool, whatever it is, to communicate with any of your professional contacts in real time.
What's the long-term vision for Mio?
Well, the long-term vision for Mio, I mean, if you think about 10, 20 years out, I don't think we're going to be using 10-digit phone numbers to initiate voice calls much longer. I don't think we're going to be sending 140-character plain text messages over the SMS protocol. All voice and messaging is going to be IP-based. To a large extent, it already is, right? It's all going to be over the top. No one really disagrees with that. The big problem with that vision of the world is that there's 1,000 voice apps out there, there's 1,000 messaging apps out there, there's 1,000 video apps out there, and none of them talk to each other. So we're replacing the unified telecommunications infrastructure of the 1990s with a highly fragmented IP-based communication infrastructure of the 2020s. And we don't think that makes any sense. The good news is they all have APIs. And so there's no reason why a company like Mio can't stitch together the APIs for every voice, video, and messaging app in the world together onto one global unified communication network. And I think if you could pull that off, if you could connect every voice, video, and messaging app together such that you could use whatever messaging app you want, I could use whatever messaging app I want, and we can message each other in real time, then I think that's the global communication infrastructure for humanity. And I think we're starting with messaging and we're starting with the workplace. But ultimately, we want to be building the pipes between the platforms that enables every person on the planet to communicate with every other person on the planet, regardless of which app they're using. I mean, it really shouldn't be that difficult if you think about it. It's a pretty basic requirement. And so in many ways, it feels a little bit like we're living in the mid-1990s again with the walled gardens of CompuServe and Prodigy and AOL. All we need now that the APIs exist is a bit of time to get them all connected together onto a global communication network.
Well, you've got certainly a challenge on your hands connecting the people and connecting vendors ultimately. So I certainly wish you all the best with that, Tom. And it's been great speaking to you today. Thanks for sharing Mio Universal Channels with me and the audience. A superb product that solves one of certainly the biggest collaboration challenges out there right now. Thanks for everyone for watching. You can find out more at m.io if you're interested in Mio Universal Channels. And if you enjoyed today's session, we'd really appreciate a like or a share, and we'll see you again soon.